Hello, I'm your extra cat, and that dog just survived a direct creeper attack thanks to the new wolf armor, which comes from the Armadillos, and boy is this a controversial new Minecraft feature. There are so many things that people hate about this mob and its implementation, but oddly enough, the most common one seems to be that they really hope they move the eyes to the sides of the head. It was much cuter that way, and that's where their eyes are in real life. For comparison, here's what other Minecraft mobs would look like if they had eyes at the front. I think that dolphin is so beautifully derpy. This to me seems like an argument as to why we should have eyes in the front. Minecraft is a fantasy game after all, and we actually have a direct response from the art director of Minecraft, Japper, saying the eyes of the armadillo are in the front because when they are on the sides, you're looking at an empty forehead. It's difficult to create a connection with it, considering this is a mob which you'll interact with, possibly quite often. I felt like this was important, and I actually do agree with his entire message here. Actually, not his entire message. He says that it's going to be a mob you interact with, possibly quite often. How often will you really want to interact with an armadillo? Even if you brush it 7 times to make some wolf armor, or maybe you go crazy and you make a second set, but after you've done that, when would you want the armadillo again? Maybe you would go ahead and take a few and make a zoo, but even that feels a little bit far-fetched, and ultimately this is a problem which a lot of people are raising. This one is from Micah Ritchie 7158. Is it just me, or are they shying away from making you kill mobs? I very much thought you'd have to kill them to get this cute, and yeah, this is a valid point. Minecraft is moving away from giving you benefit when you kill something, which seems like a good idea, but only if you can give it something better in return. The last time we got a new mob meat, a new benefit for killing a mob in the form of the rabbit foot and the rabbit meat was the rabbit, of course, for 2014, and so it's been 9 years since then, and every mob that since they've been trying to give a use in some other way. There's the llama with its weird chest ability, there's the panda with its, I guess, cute animations, and there's the fox, which can occasionally put items in its mouth. Ultimately, I think Minecraft mobs were much easier to define and benefit from when they either gave you something when you killed them, or you could directly interact with them and get some benefit, like with the horse and the dog, and I guess that's why this can theoretically be a good update, because they're trying to give away to the dog, but they're doing so by making a mob which doesn't seem to do very much. By the way, when I made my video diving into the latest preview, I mentioned that the armadillo was a neutral mob, which usually in Minecraft parlance means a mob that will attack you if attacked. However, the armadillo doesn't do that, and so when I said neutral, did I mean passive, because Endermen are neutral? And no, funnily enough, even though the armadillo is a passive mob, by the way anyone would describe it, Mojang themselves call it a neutral mob. It is still up on the changelog right now. They call most animals neutral, which is a bit weird. I think having 3 categories makes more sense, peaceful/friendly, and then hostile, and then in between is neutral, but Mojang do disagree, and maybe that's because they're going to give the armadillo some ability to fight back, or maybe that's because of a poor definition. Who knows for sure? All I know is that lots of people are mad that they voted for this instead of 2 incredibly useful mobs, and this is a very common sentiment this year. It seems as though more than I've ever seen for a previous mob vote mob, there are just people who are still upset that they could have had much better things, and something about seeing the armadillo in the game seems to trigger these people especially. I decided to see if this sentiment really was worse than I'd seen before, and I did a Twitter poll, or an X poll, and 69.9% of people, even after seeing the armadillo and what it does, says they'd still prefer the penguin or crab. They would much prefer those things to an armadillo, which is fascinating to me. I also think it's fascinating how many comments we get talking about the mob vote rigged, which we do need to talk about right after we dive into the much more important thing, which is reading through these comments. Do people really expect the armadillo and wolf armor to be fully fleshed out features at this point? The armadillo and wolf armor concept was introduced in October. If I understand how the mob vote works, Mojang hadn't really developed anything at all beyond that point besides the basic concept. Now, 2 months later, we're getting our first look at something that probably won't be finished until about a month before the next major update releases 5 to 6 months from now. Why are some people so quick to complain about something that isn't even done being developed yet? This is one of the most important things to keep in mind when talking about snapshots and betas. The point is they are showing us what they look like now, and if there are any obvious issues, they can fix them later. However, people who are dreaming of entire wolf AI remakes or in an entirely new function for the armadillo, I think you might just be off a little bit off the mark. I think what is more realistic is you might see a redesign, or you might see maybe they implement something where when the mob is threatened, it will actually, when it's in a ball, it might have a little bit better defense rather than doing what it does right now. But I think that if you're expecting anything drastically more than that, oh no, I really shouldn't have punched those guys. I've made the wolf very mad at them. But if you're expecting anything a lot more than that, or anything more for the wolf armor, then yeah, you put it on your dog, and now your dog can can survive a direct explosion if you expect anything more than that. By the way, isn't this impressive? Look at this. I have a dog and, well, he was a bit too close to the TNT, I guess. Anyway, but I... Whoopsie. I think that if you're expecting anything more than that, that is probably a bit unrealistic. Sure, Mojang are in the beta snapshot process, and so they could do anything in a given week, but I also think that a lot of the community's reactions to this are basically saying we want a better mob. The Armadillo was promised and was indeed voted on by people solely as a mob that drops a scute, which can be turned into wolf armor, which I think people rightfully say looks kind of questionable under some circumstances. But yeah, that is the entire thing they want to add, and it's only the round edges around this we might get, and that's why I hope for dyeable armor. That's why I hope they make wolves better at avoiding collisions, but ultimately, when they create a new system from the ground up, such as, say, Wolf AI, which clearly needs more states than just on, off, defensive, or following me around everywhere, except not even following me into oceans, I think although there are so many improvements they could make, when they make these changes, they run the risk of upsetting people, whereas if you, and indeed, when you make a drastic change, you might actually make things worse for some number of people, whereas even if you don't like the wolf armor or the armadillo, you've got to admit, I mean, it's not worse than what we have right now. I assume you think that at least. Anyway, speaking of things that you assume, I'm sure some of you are going to ask, what exactly am I doing in this background gameplay? And the answer is that I'm trying out this new Minecraft Bedrock thing I've heard about. I've heard it's a lot of fun, which is something I haven't heard about the Minecraft movie, which just had a new casting announcement this week. That's right, it seems to be really happening because they just announced that Emma Myers has joined the cast, although they haven't said who she's playing. The only people we know exactly who they're playing are Jason Momoa, who is Steve, and Daniel Brooks, who is playing someone called Dawn. This isn't someone I am familiar with in the Minecraft universe, and it's not someone many people are familiar with, but whenever people hear about these casting announcements and the fact that these are going to be real people we're seeing in a movie, they say stuff like, well, actually, why are they doing this as a live action movie? Wouldn't this be much better as an animated one? So many comments of people saying stuff like this, and ultimately, when you look at, say, Sonic and Mario, maybe the two other big game franchises that got movies, I think that even though the Mario movie was much more charming and probably objectively a better movie, I think that the Sonic movie was great too, and I'm looking forward to that sequel more than I would be looking forward to watching a second Mario movie, so maybe that's a key part of it. Or maybe because they started making this movie in 2014, at the time live action was just a better idea. Who knows for sure if this ever gets off the ground, but based on the fact that we're seeing regular news, I do think that in 2025 we will be seeing a Minecraft movie, and I'm going to keep my mind open to it being a positive thing, even though I think a lot of people aren't. Speaking of positive things, the big news that we'd probably see for the Minecraft movie would be at the 15-year anniversary happening next year, and a lot of people are saying now that the sniffer is in the game, and it's now very shortly going to be at the point where every major feature they've announced will be ready and finished, and they'll have months left of development until its release date next year, surely now's the time to work on other things. That could be brand new combat, a lot of people feel positive about that. That could be trial chamber improvements and new rooms and something to do with the trial key, that sounds exciting too. It could be an entirely new structure or feature or something to do with tinkering or combat, but an idea I heard which I thought was interesting was, what about using now as the perfect time to do the savannah and desert updates? Indeed, there are lots of biomes that Minecraft said they'll update at some point. They showed us features for them. You know, we could have vultures or new trees, and why not use now as the time to do it? The savannah is already getting an update in the form of the armadillo, and I think the armadillo by himself feels a bit weak and weird, but what if you made the biome he's in more interesting? Personally, I think this is something that is more important for Mojang to focus on, although a lot of people are having unreasonable expectations about just how great wolf armor can be, or just how great they can make armadillos if they just make 500 changes that make them unlike the Minecraft Live. I think that if they're looking to make the best game, you implement the features faithfully and ideally bug-free, and ideally even in a cute extra way, but also then use some extra time to work on top of that to provide things that can make Minecraft better. And I do believe that as a community, when you negatively just say, oh, this is terrible to everything they put out, they're going to stop listening to you as a whole, and I think that's why it's worth maybe, just maybe, trying to engage constructively and saying, okay, this wasn't my favorite mob, but lots of people voted for it. I see why Mojang has to do it. It's not that they're crazy or evil, they're just following the vote that they had, and yeah, I think that is something that is valuable to learn. And by the way, I got this comment on the last week's Q&A Saturday saying he really thought he he could teach people how to function in a political environment and pass it off as video game commentary without us noticing. And nope, I didn't say that at all. I'm solely talking about Mojang in this particular case when I say that there is an authority system which you might not fully understand, but which it is fully worth engaging with in the ways that they deem possible, because that is a better way of actually achieving changes that you want and positivity for the future, in my opinion. And in case you don't care about my opinion, maybe you care about the fact that I've been trying to play and beat Minecraft using just 2 inventory slots. It's been what you've actually been watching in the background, and it was one of the weirdest challenges that really made me enjoy the game. If you are at a point where you're not enjoying something, rather than hoping that just one update that will come out in some amount of time will fix it, maybe you should work within the tools that you have right now. In case that sounds crazy to you, maybe you should use the tool on YouTube of subscribing to this channel. You'll see more videos like this with the latest Minecraft news and indeed weird challenges like 2-item inventories. And in case you don't care about either of those opinions, well, here are my thoughts on the Armadillo armor. He just looks like he's got poop all over him at this angle, right? It doesn't look like he's a strong dog. It looks like he's a dog who's maybe had an accident or rolled around in something he shouldn't have. And to that I say, let's clean him off.